And let's begin straight away by taking this across to Gaurav Sawant, who's been getting you detailed reports of what's really been playing out. Gaurav currently is joining us from Mariupol. Gaurav, when you joined us live earlier, your report was truly numbing about what was playing out and how you were stuck on board a train because of heavy shelling happening in Mariupol. What's happening right now? Where are you?
So the train will not move for another 4 to 6 hours is what railway officials here have said, and that is because they are not sure of track safety on the outskirts of Mariupol where intense fighting was taking place. So they're saying the train stays put where they are. They've asked people to stay put and not venture out onto the streets. And if you look all around me, the streets of Mariupol completely deserted. There's nobody on the streets of Mariupol in wake of this fighting. People fleeing the city as quickly as they can, but where do they go? How do they go when there's fighting that's happening on roads, when fighting is happening where trains cannot move out? You remember the airfield was the first to be shelled, so no radars there, the airfield is not there, so people are just trapped. They're just trapped. So instead of sitting in the train, we've come out on the streets of Mariupol to be able to report what's happening on ground zero of this battle in the east, while there's the battle that's on in the west, in Ukraine, in Kiev. Pitched battles on the streets of Kiev, intense artillery shelling at this stage in and around Mariupol in the east. This, of course, remains a very key area that Russia wants to capture to make a point on Donbass and on Luhansk. So this is the axis that they are moving forward on. We are also trying to figure out whether the road access would be open first till Dnipro, that's a town, Dnipro as they call it here, and from there to Kiev. So 4 hours from here to Dnipro, and then another 9 hours from there to the capital Kiev, with multiple military checkpoints. And now there is anxiety because locals do not know which is a friendly checkpoint and which is a hostile checkpoint. Friendly checkpoint also because now there are not just the Ukrainian army but local militia that have been raised by towns and cities that are manning checkpoints with as little as AK-47 assault rifles, wearing some kind of a uniform, but nobody really knows who they are and whether they're the Georgian soldiers, the Ukrainian soldiers, or mercenaries from outside who've come in to help. Because you heard President Zelensky, he said we are taking help from whoever is willing to come forward and help us protect our country from a Russian invasion. So that uncertainty and that fog of war, which was earlier perhaps at the borders or the outskirts, now in cities of Ukraine.
Gaurav, the kind of images that we've been seeing from different places, Mariupol is very much one of them. You've been reporting from locations where we've constantly seen shelling. We recently got a video from, another city where people inside their, what appears to be their living room have actually captured shells exploding right outside their house. We've got that video, which we'll play out in just a moment, is terrifying. This, the suggestion that civilian areas are not being targeted has gone right out of the window, Gaurav.
With intense, the intensification of battle, and Shiv, you and I were in Libya together when we were covering the situation there. So that time there was an organized army of Colonel Gaddafi versus the militia that was resisting them. In this case, there are two organized armies fighting each other and militia joining in. That is what makes this battle as intense as it appears to be becoming on ground zero right now. Bombs falling in civilian areas. You're seeing what's happening in Kiev, you're seeing what's happening in multiple other cities, and that's exactly what the situation is that is prompting people now to abandon their homes. And some of the aged, you heard this, and this appeared closer than the previous one. This is where locals are saying, even if we abandon our homes, even if we go, where do we go? At night, it's sub-zero temperature. You're seeing people carrying big bags of groceries and water to be able to sustain themselves locked inside their houses. But they're not even safe inside their houses, Shiv and Akshita.
Gaurav, we just heard that kind of shelling near you, so take care, be careful. But what I'm also getting a sense from you of, you tried to get out of Mariupol and you couldn't. The trains are not moving from there. There's no public transport. You're trying to figure out if roads lead anywhere, but everything is so precarious right now. What are you doing for food, for water, for groceries? You're telling me people are going around carrying these big bags. Are shops open? Are provisions reaching them?
So the provisions that remain in shops are there, but additional provisions cannot come in anymore because there are no trains, because there are no flights, and now because it's precarious whether roads will remain open, and if so, how long. You know, such is the fog of war and uncertainty on ground zero. And this is, you know, the taxi driver that we were speaking to, he speaks broken Russian. We're using a lot of mobile phone translations. We type out in English and then he translates it into Ukrainian and then responds. Now that person too developed cold feet and said, I'm sorry, initially he said he'll take us to Dnipro and then from there to Kiev, and then he developed cold feet and he didn't show up. So, you know, and as everyone says, most important at this point of time is to remain alive. They just want to survive, and for that they think that if they remain indoors, at least they will live and hopefully survive the shelling that's happening at this stage. And this is just the shelling stage. They're not sure if tanks will come rolling down these streets, as is apprehended, as is the apprehension given the Russian charge that seems to be happening on multiple axes here. Shiv and Akshata.
Gaurav, you were talking about, you know, the safety of the track from Mariupol to Kiev, the shelling that's happening. You know, no one needs to exaggerate it. Where you're standing and speaking to us, we can hear the shells landing not very far from where you are right now. I'm not surprised at all that that train is not moved. I'm not surprised that the train and the railway officials are too scared to pull that train out, because they're wondering whether the train will be safe once it moves out if shelling is happening within such close quarters.
Shiv, you're absolutely right. That's the issue at this stage. You know, yesterday we were to move at 17:50 local time, 5:50 p.m. local time. We'd reached the station at 5 o'clock local time just to be sure that we make it on board that train despite having a ticket, because there were so many people who were trying to get out. And we sat in the train 5:50, 6, 7, 8, and the conductor just kept telling us that we are waiting to ensure track safety. We are just waiting for a track safety confirmation report. That track safety confirmation report did not come till 10 o'clock at night, and then the shelling intensified, and he said, I'm sorry, you have to switch off all lights, you have to remain indoors as in inside the train. So they literally locked up people inside trains. They themselves were also inside the trains. It's not as if they locked us up and went elsewhere. They too remained there, but the train remained on track, on platform till this morning. And even now when they said track safety confirmation hasn't come, the next station is not able to confirm on ground whether the track in between two railway stations is safe, so the trains are stranded. The final destination, which is Kiev, they're clearly not sure whether they'll be able to get to Kiev. But you know, some of the analysts, we were speaking to a veteran on board the train, and he said they will not, prima facie, they should not damage trains or tracks, because they would hope to harness the same train and tracks to be able to get additional soldiers and supplies to Kiev. But the fact remains, Shiv, you remember the Ukrainian soldiers had blown up 2 bridges to be able to stall the advance of the Russian army into Kiev. Would they blow up tracks to ensure that additional resources cannot be mobilized by the advancing Russian army through tracks and blow up those tracks? So this is why this uncertainty remains here. And in the fog of war, since there is no clarity, the train for the past almost 15 hours plus is standing on the tracks here in Mariupol.
Truly scary, you know, when you tell us, Gaurav, about how, you know, that played out. You couldn't switch on your phone. Imagine sitting in pitch darkness, not knowing what's going to happen next. You can't switch on your phone. You can't switch on the torch. None of that. You just have to stay still. And that's truly scary to even imagine the circumstances that you were in. The situation that you're explaining to us, Gaurav, it almost sounds to me like Mariupol is almost completely isolated now, that there's no way anyone can go in or come out. Is that the situation in many cities now in Ukraine?
Almost across Ukraine, that's the situation, because intercity travel would mean crossing barricades, crossing checkpoints, and God forbid running into advancing soldiers of one side or the other. Armored personal carriers are zooming and zipping down streets. Tanks are zooming and zipping down streets. That's the information that we are getting in from Odessa. And that is why, when students leave this place, it's a very precarious journey that they too are undertaking to either the Polish border or the Romanian border, and try
I think we've lost that connection with Gaurav. We'll go across to him in just a bit. He's reporting from Mariupol. Gaurav, Shiv,
Yeah.
you know, in fact, your previous conversation also mentioned how he's been trying desperately for the last 24 hours at least to get out of Mariupol. But it's been virtually impossible.
Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible, and it's also not difficult to understand why it's happening because of you know how volatile the situation is. Look at the people on your screen right now, viewer. This is India Today's fearless team reporting from the zone of conflict. It's Gaurav Sawant, who you just saw, reporting from everywhere in Mariupol. Maria Pysarenko, who's been reporting from bombed out Kiev. She's been in a bomb shelter. Rajesh has been reporting between Kharkiv and Mariupol. He's a Special Forces veteran. He's been bringing to bear his experience in conflict zones to tell us what's happening. And last but not least, Abha Bakaya, India Today's senior editor, who's the latest to join our amazing, fearless reporting team from Medica, which is on the Ukraine-Poland border. So when I say that Akshita and I are giving you 360-degree coverage of this story, it's not an exaggeration. You're watching this story play out, this horrible crisis of conflict play out through the eyes of 4 unbelievably talented and fearless reporters who are on the ground. More images coming in.
Yeah, and Abba's just reached that spot there, Shiv, that you were also mentioning. We just quickly play out her report. Poland, of course, is seeing a huge influx of refugees and Ukrainians amid what's playing out right now in Ukraine. Poland plans to open 9 reception centers along its 535-kilometer-long border with Ukraine to manage the inflow of refugees. We're also getting you these latest images that are coming in. This is, if I'm not wrong, from Kiev. And you see the kind of damage, devastation on the ground. You know, from early this morning, we've been reporting about what's been playing out, about the kind of bombing, the explosions that have been reported. This is the aftermath of that. On your screens from the capital, you can see the devastation on the ground. Unfortunately, it definitely looks like, Shiv, from all the damaged buildings, the rubble on the road, that this means that, you know, civilian settlements have also faced the brunt, where they've been targeted.
And all of our reporters have been saying exactly this, Akshita, over the last few hours, that urban warfare is probably going to become front and center. Look at these images. These are the latest images coming in from Kiev that give you even more detail of the kind of damage that has been done to the city. The kind of debris you're seeing lying around, you know, in a city that has been as modern as most European cities, is evidence of the shelling, the artillery, the bombardment that has taken place. I'm surprised that building is still standing, because in several other places have not been so lucky. Missile impacts have reduced a lot of building facades to rubble. People have abandoned their neighborhoods to get out of those neighborhoods as well. Abha Bakaya, India Today's senior editor, is on the Ukraine-Poland border, which is witnessing a huge outflow of refugees amidst this ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Poland plans to open 9 reception centers along its long 535-kilometer-long border with Ukraine to manage the big inflow of refugees. Many Indians are also crossing the border on the Poland side. Take a look. Abha, live from the Ukraine-Poland border. Over to you, Abha.
The Polish-Ukraine border, you can see scores and scores of cars bringing refugees through to Poland. The mood this morning on this Saturday morning here is relatively calm. We are speaking to some of the refugees walking through. As you can see there, we've got estimated, I think, 50,000 displaced. Those are the latest numbers coming in. And Poland this time has also been friendlier to refugees, particularly because, of course, they relate to what's happening to Ukraine, the kind of the kind of action that Russia has taken, and there's a lot of empathy for the Ukrainian refugees and that anti-Russia sentiment that's building up here on ground. So definitely, definitely a lot of people that we're seeing walking through towards Poland right now. We're also seeing lots of refugee camps around the area, whether it be an old monastery, whether it be other shelters. So lots of these camps are building. There are NGOs flying in from world over, bringing in scores of supplies as well to help some of these people that are displaced. I'm Abha Bakaya. We're going to continue to get you on-ground reports here from the Polish border.
And the story coming in from Ukraine continues to be told through the pictures and the cameras that India today has on the ground in different cities of this war-waging nation. A country that is so much smaller than Russia, but has galvanized and come together to fight off a much larger invader and adversary. Image number one of the haunting images of day 3 of this invasion by President Putin. A rocket attack captured by the dash cam of a car being driven by a Ukrainian citizen in the city of Kharkiv, where India today is also reporting. Watch this. Watch the audio from this rocket artillery shell impact.
A similar incident that's been reported. You see this video again from the dash cam where a driver has an extremely close shave there as her car was caught in shelling, just about swerving away. You see the camera shaking upon the impact of that shelling as well. Very worrying, because this means that this is happening in civilian settlements, which means also that civilian casualties are being reported.
Да, машине, блядь, как бы, ну, пизда. Самолет опять.
The non-stop rumble of Putin's war machine captured in this fresh video coming in from the Kherson city of Ukraine on the border, with utility vehicles, armored vehicles, infantry vehicles rumbling down a road. Remember that wars are won through logistics. It's an old saying that wars are not won only by weapons, they're also won by logistics, even more by logistics. And what you're seeing is the brutal logistics might of the Russians. And that's one of the reasons also that the Ukrainians are trying to destroy roads and bridges to slow the enemy's advance.
And look at what's on your screens. One man in such a show of bravery stands in the middle of the road even as an entire Russian military convoy comes straight at him. He stands on the road to stop them from going any further. This is a convoy that was moving towards the capital of Kiev, and that's why he's seen standing there saying, "I will not let you go forward." And this image is no doubt going to go down as one of the most defining images of this war.
And probably one of the most disturbing images coming in from Ukraine of a Ukrainian passenger car driver who was run over by an armored vehicle purportedly of the Russian armed forces. He miraculously survived. This video that India today cannot independently authenticate but has been reported from the ground yesterday in Ukraine is being one of the most shared videos from Ukraine. It has triggered anger, outrage, panic, and has galvanized the citizenry in what is turning out to be, in popular perception, as a David versus Goliath fight between Ukraine and Russia.
And here's another truly haunting image that's emerging now from Ukraine. We're putting out images on your screens there of a baby that was born in a subway that's being used now as a bomb shelter. Amid the war, you've got one incident of a woman giving birth to a baby in one of these shelters, receiving help from all the Ukrainians who were around her. This happened, we understand, overnight on February 25th. Amid ongoing air raids as part of Russia's war against Ukraine, you're seeing a lot of people flocking to metro stations, to subways. One woman, a pregnant woman, rushed to the subway, fortunately received help from all the Ukrainians around her. This baby was born in the subway overnight on February 25th.
An incredible moment. And, humanity has to go on. But just imagine a baby of war. The first report of a child born in a subway shelter being used as a bomb shelter by citizens of what's happening at this point of time. Ivana Klimpuch Tsindzadze is a member of parliament, head of the integration committee. She joins us live as well. Ivana, thanks very much for being with us here on India Today. Can you tell us about your assessment of the current situation in Ukraine?
Russia is attacking from all sides, and Kiev is one of the main targets at this particular moment. Some of these cities in the north of Ukraine, like Kharkiv, some of the cities in the south of Ukraine, as Melitopol and Mariupol, are attacked, and some of them are already unfortunately, under the control of Russian forces. Kiev is going to fight back, both armed forces and territorial defense. All people are united and trying to ensure that occupiers are not taking our land. But at the same time, we need no-fly zone to be introduced as soon as possible in order to ensure that there is no humanitarian crisis, that there is no humanitarian disaster, not crisis, disaster all over. Moreover, I would like to remind everyone, Chernobyl zone, which is very close to Kiev, the atomic power station that blew up years ago, is also in the vicinity where the Russian rockets could attack. And so this is important to prevent ecological disaster, humanitarian disaster, and to protect Ukraine as soon as possible. And we are calling on all the governments, and we are calling on all the people to act immediately. We also need air defense. We also need additional enforcement and additional weapons. And there are corridors from the west of Ukraine, how they can be delivered to Ukraine. So, it's important that people from all over the world and governments from all over the world unite and finally punish Putin, who is a war criminal, and bring him to international tribunal.
Can you elaborate further on that, Ivana? Because right now, most countries reacting to what's happened are imposing sanctions, economic sanctions. US President Joe Biden has just announced the release of $350 million as military aid to Ukraine. Is that the kind of support that you really see going forward if you want to put a fight back, a strong one against Russia?
Military aid is essential, is critical and crucial. Sanctions, as we see, are not working, are not providing any result. Putin does not care. He's going to destroy not only our land, but also he's going to destroy his own country by acting this way. So therefore, military aid is essential. No-fly zone is critical, and that could help, but we don't have that much time. People are resisting. We obviously have much less forces than Russians, but we have courage and desire to protect our land, and that's where I think Putin has underestimated Ukraine and Ukrainians yet again.
Ivana, are you expecting, at this point of time, Ukrainians are picking up weapons. It's an incredible show of unity and strength. People old and young are enlisting in the territorial defense forces, in an act of patriotism. There is a sense of do or die in Ukraine at this time. Do you think at this time, Ivana, and this is our final question, that the world will step in? Do you think the world will step in?
I do not give prognosis whether the world will step in or not. If the world does not step in, the world will actually, that will ruin the world's security. And so it's not exclusively about us. It's about the whole world. And I'm afraid it's about the World War III.
And that's a message I'm sure the entire world is listening to right now, that this is going to have repercussions on everyone. It's not limited to Ukraine. It's not limited to Russia. Thank you, Ivana. We hope you're safe, and we will keep connecting with you. Thank you for the moment for joining us here on India Today. We're, of course, getting you many, many such voices as well of people, of Ukrainians. They're pleased to the world right now as they're facing bombing, unprecedented situation right now in their own homes.